Welcome to Cheat Sheet Tales, where secrets slip, lies unravel, and the truth always has a twist. Real stories, raw confessions, shocking betrayals. Drop a comment if you've ever caught a red flag too late. Now let's get into today's tale. I paid off my wife's parents' medical bills while skipping my own appointments. One morning, I collapsed at work at the hospital. My wife said, "You'll be fine, they needed it more." Her mother called me a drama addict. I lay there listening, hooked too, and for that night, I called the one person who knew what I've been hiding for years. I'm Mark, I'm 38. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and for the last 10 years, I thought I was a good man, a good husband. I married Rachel right after college. She was everything. I thought I wanted smart, funny, the kind of woman who could talk your ear off at a dinner party. But if I'm honest, the warning signs were always there. I just didn't want to see them. Rachel's parents, John and Margaret, had a lot of health problems. John had a heart attack 2 years into our marriage, and Margaret was diagnosed with diabetes not long after. They were drowning in medical bills, and Rachel was devastated. I didn't want her to suffer, so I started paying for everything. I picked up side jobs. On weekends, delivered pizzas at night, even cashed out some of my savings. I told myself it was the right thing to do. Family comes first, right? But here's the thing, while I was making sure John got his heart meds and Margaret had her insulin, I was ignoring my own health. Hadn't been to a doctor in years. I was getting headaches all the time, felt dizzy, and kept pushing it aside. I thought I'll get to it eventually, but eventually never came. It all came to a head one morning at work. I was at my desk when I felt this crushing pain in my chest. I tried to stand up, but the room spun, and the next thing I knew, I was on the floor. Someone called 911. I woke up in the ER, hooked up to and 4 wires everywhere. When Rachel showed up, I expected her to be scared, to be worried, but she just sat there, arms crossed. I'll never forget her words. She looked at me like I was overreacting and said, "You'll be fine, they needed it more." I stared at her, my mouth dry, my heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with the monitors beeping around me. And then Margaret walked in carrying a coffee like she was visiting someone in a cafe, not the hospital. She took one look at me, wrinkled her nose, and said, "He's always been a drama addict, you'll bounce back." A drama addict, that's what she called me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip the 4 out of my arm and tell them to get the hell out, but I just lay there feeling my heart race, my body weak, like my life wasn't even mine anymore. That night after, they left. I stared at the ceiling, the fluorescent lights buzzing above me. I realized no one was coming to save me. Rachel wasn't going to change. Margaret wasn't going to care. I was alone in this. I did the only thing I could. I picked up my phone, handshaking, and called my sister Melanie. She's the only one who knew the full truth, what I'd been hiding for years ago before I met Rachel. I was diagnosed with a heart condition. Nothing too serious, they said, as long as I kept up with my checkups, stayed on my meds, and took care of myself. I never told Rachel, I didn't want her to worry, but after we got married, money got tight. Every dollar went to her parents' bills. So I stopped going to the doctor, stopped refilling my prescriptions, told myself I'd be fine. Melanie knew, she begged me to take care of myself, but I kept putting it off, lying in that hospital bed listening to the machines beeping. I knew I'd made a huge mistake, Mark. Melanie's voice cracked on the other end of the phone. It was late, but she picked up right away. I could hear her kids in the background, the sound of the TV. "Mel, I screwed up," I whispered. Her voice dropped low. "Tell me what's going on?" I told her everything. The collapse, Rachel's words, Margaret's insult, the years of paying their bills while ignoring my own health, the secret I'd been carrying. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then finally she said, "You need to get out of there." I lay there staring at the phone in my hand, and something inside me snapped head. I realized I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for people who didn't give a damn if I lived or died. I had no plan yet, no idea how I was going to dig myself out of this mess. But for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Anger, real burning anger, and I knew I was going to use it. I was done being the guy who gave everything and got nothing back. I didn't know how yet, but I was going to make them pay. Rachel, Margaret, even John, if it came to that. They'd taken so much from me. I was going to take it all back, and more. After that night, something inside me broke open. I lay in that hospital bed for dripping into my veins, feeling like a fool. A damn fool. For 10 years I had worked myself to the bone, skipped my own checkups, lied about my heart condition, and poured every dollar I had into Rachel's family. And for what? So I could get called a drama addict while I was lying half dead in a hospital bed. I stared at the ceiling, the beeping of the monitors loud in the silence, my pulse pounding in my ears. Rachel's words echoed over and over, "You'll be fine." They needed it more. I wanted to believe that maybe she didn't mean it. Maybe she was scared. But then I remembered all the times I told her I wasn't feeling right. The times I said I was dizzy or my chest hurt, and she'd brush me off, always too busy, always worrying about her parents. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a mistake, she just didn't care. I was still in the hospital the next day when Rachel came back, this time with her father. Johnny was half asleep when they walked in, talking like I wasn't even there. Rachel started flipping through her phone, and John was complaining about the price of gas and how he couldn't afford to fill up his truck. They didn't ask how I was doing. They didn't ask about the diagnosis. I couldn't take it anymore. I sat up in bed, yanking the oxygen tube off my face. My voice was. But I forced it out. "Rachel," I said, my voice cracked, but I kept going. "I need you to leave." She looked up, blinking like she didn't understand. "What? I need you to leave." I repeated, "You and your father get out." John scoffed. "Don't get dramatic, Mark." That word again, dramatic, like I was making this all up. Rachel's face twisted into something cold. "You're overreacting. You'll be fine. We have a lot going on. Can we not do this right now?" I just stared at her, breathing hard. My hands were shaking my chest. Hurt, but I didn't care. "Leave," I said, voice shaking now. John grumbled, but they left. Rachel gave me a look before she walked out, like she was the victim here, like I had inconvenienced her by being sick. He sat there alone, staring at the door long after. It clicked shut. My hands clenched the blanket so tight my knuckles went white. I didn't care what happened next. I didn't care if they were angry. I was done. Later that night, I called Melanie again. "I need your help." I told her, my voice was steady this time, cold. She didn't hesitate. "What do you want me to do?" "I want out," I said. "I want out of this marriage. I want to cut them off completely, and I want them to feel it." There was a long pause on the line. Then Melanie said, "Let's do it." I started planning first. I had to get better. I had to get out of this hospital. I worked with the doctors, finally told them about my heart condition, and got back on my med. So every time Rachel came in, I pretended to be asleep or asked the nurses not to let her visit. I didn't care if it hurt her feelings. I wasn't her problem anymore. Melanie helped me find a lawyer. We met in secret while I was still recovering. I told him everything. The years of paying Rachel's parents' bills. The debt I'd racked up, my health problems. The verbal abuse. He listened, taking notes, and when I finished, he just nodded. "We can build a case," he said. "This isn't going to be pretty, but we can do it." Good. I wanted it to be ugly. I wanted Rachel and her family to feel what I had felt every single day, helpless, used, and tossed aside like trash. Once I was discharged, I didn't go home. I moved straight into Melanie's spare bedroom. My phone buzzed, non-stop texts from Rachel, missed calls, even a few from Margaretti. Didn't answer a single one. I let them stew. I let the silence grow. And you know what? It felt good. For once I wasn't the one chasing after them. The day after I left the hospital, Melanie came home from work with a fire in her eyes. She slapped a folder down in front of me. It was thick with papers, financial statements, medical records, credit card bills. She'd spend hours digging through everything. "Mark," she said, "do you have any idea how much money you've been bleeding for them?" I looked through it, page after page, thousands of dollars in charges for John's heart meds, Margaret's insulin, hospital stays, physical therapy sessions, even a damn stair lift they had installed. All paid with my credit card, my name, my debt. It hit me like a freight train. I've been draining my own health, my own life, while they sat around acting like I was the selfish one. I didn't wait. I called the lawyer the next morning and told him I was ready. We filed for divorce the same week. Rachel was served while she was at work, and according to Melanie's friend who worked in the same office, she threw a full-on tantrum, cried in the break room, demanded to go home early. Part of me felt bad, until I remembered her sitting by my hospital bed, scrolling on her phone while I fought to stay conscious. I changed my bank passwords, cut off the credit cards, and froze the joint account. That afternoon, Rachel called me screaming, said I was ruining her life, that her parents needed that money for their medication, that I was leaving them to die. I just let her yell. I sat there on Melanie's couch listening until she finally ran out of steam. Then I spoke, calm and quiet. I'm done, Rachel. I'm not your ATM. I'm not your father. And I'm sure as hell not your doormat. Get your own money. Then I hung up. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. A week later, Rachel showed up at Melanie's house, banging on the front door, yelling so loud the neighbors came out. She was crying, makeup smeared, hair a mess. "Mark, you can't do this! You can't just leave us with nothing!" she screamed. Melanie opened the door, arms crossed, glaring at her like she was a stray cat scratching at the window. "He doesn't owe." "You a damn thing?" Melanie said. "Now get off my property." Rachel tried to shove past her, but I stepped into the doorway. "Rachel, you need to leave now or I'm calling the cops." Her face twisted into something ugly, pure rage. Then she spit it out like venom. "You're a selfish bastard. After everything we did for you, you think you're better than us. You're just a sick, pathetic man who couldn't handle the pressure. You're nothing without me." I didn't flinch. I just stared her down. "No," I said. "I'm finally something without you." She stormed off, cursing under her breath, and sped away in her car. Tires squealed down the street. I stood there, heart pounding, but for the first time in years, I felt alive. But the real blow came 2 days later. I was sitting with Melanie, sorting through more of the paperwork when she froze. She held up a medical bill from 6 months ago, when I didn't remember authorizing it. It was a hospital stay for John, and the amount was huge. Tens of thousands. "Mark, did you sign off on this?" she asked. I looked at it. My signature was on the form, but it wasn't mine. It was forged. My stomach dropped. My hands started shaking. I felt like the floor was tilting under me. Rachel had forged my signature. She had put my name on a hospital bill for her father without asking, without telling me. I stared at it, pieces clicking together in my head. This wasn't just about using me for money. This was fraud. I sat there holding that forged bill in my hands, and it felt like a switch flipped in my brain. All those years I spent killing myself to keep Rachel's family afloat, ignoring my own health, turning a blind eye to their selfishness. It all led to this. Rachel had forged my signature to stick me with her father's hospital bill. She didn't just take my money, she stole my life. I knew exactly what I had to do. I met with my lawyer the next day. I laid everything out. The forged signature, the financial abuse, the manipulation. I even showed him old text messages where Rachel pressured me to pay bills because family comes first, and how I'd skipped my own heart appointments so they could afford their medication. His face went stone cold. "We can go after them for fraud, Mark," he said. "This is criminal. And if you're willing to pursue it, we can make sure they feel every single bit of this." I didn't hesitate. "Do it," I told him. "I want them to pay." The next weeks were a blur of legal filings, subpoenas, and meetings. My lawyer was a pit bull. He filed charges for fraud and financial exploitation. Rachel tried to fight back, but when the evidence of the forged signature hit the court, she folded like a cheap chair. The judge ordered a full financial audit. They uncovered everything. Rachel had been funneling my money into her parents' accounts for years. Margaret and John weren't innocent either. They knew exactly what was happening, and they let it happen. The court froze their accounts, seized their assets, and ordered them to pay restitution. Rachel, she lost everything. The house, the car, the joint accounts. All gone. The judge ruled she had to repay me every penny, plus damages for emotional distress and medical neglect. And since she couldn't afford it, she had to sell her parents' house to cover the debt. Margaret and John were furious. Margaret called me screaming over the phone. "You destroyed us. You'll rot in hell for this." I just listened for a minute, then calmly replied, "No, Margaret. I just stopped letting you bleed me dry. That's not hell, that's justice." Then I hung up. Rachel tried to spin the story to her friends, claiming I was a monster, but it didn't stick. Once people saw the court documents, the proof of her fraud, and how she'd neglected my health, they backed away. Rachel lost her job. No one wanted to be around her. Her parents didn't fare much better, with their accounts frozen and their assets seized. They couldn't afford John's medications or Margaret's insulin. I heard John had to get a part-time job as a cashier at a gas station, and Margaret was begging neighbors for rides to her doctor appointments. They went from lording over everyone to barely scraping by. I won't lie, there were moments I felt bad. But then I'd remember lying in that hospital bed, chest tight, tubes everywhere, listening to Rachel say, "You'll be fine." They needed it more than guilt. It didn't last long. As for me, once the dust settled, I focused on rebuilding. I sold the house we used to share, paid off my medical bills, and finally started taking care of myself. I stuck to my treatments, kept up with my doctors, and started therapy to work through the years of resentment and pain. It wasn't easy, but every day I felt a little stronger. Melanie was my rock through it all. She kept me grounded, helped me when the anxiety crept in, and reminded me that I wasn't crazy, that I'd been taken advantage of by people who were supposed to love me. A year later, I met someone new. Her name's Vanessa. She's kind, thoughtful, and when I told her about my health, she didn't flinch. She asked how she could help. We're taking things slow, but I'm happy. For the first time in a long, long time, I'm happy. Looking back, I realized the truth. I let myself be used because I thought that's what love meant. I thought sacrificing everything was noble. It wasn't. It was self-destruction. And when I finally stood up, when I finally fought back, I took my life back. Rachel, her parents, all of them, they paid for what they did. They lost everything. And me? I may have scars, but I'm alive. I'm free, and I'll never let anyone treat me like that again. That's how I got my revenge, and I don't regret a damn.